Hey, welcome to this other video. Thank you very much for those that have been able to watch the COUNTIF. So this time around, I would like us to check out the COUNTIFs and how it works. Thank you very much for those that have been connected to this channel and you've been watching all our previous videos. I actually took you through the sum if, we did the examples in there, we did the sum ifs, we've recently done the count if, and now we jumping into the count ifs. So quickly, using the same data set, how does the count ifs work? So just to recap on what I mentioned in my previous video, the COUNTIF is related to the COUNTIFs, but what makes it what makes the two conditions different? Number one, so COUNTIF, you count a data set based on just simply one condition. You understand? But then a COUNTIFs, it gives you the leverage or the ability to count based on multiple conditions. For example, count A if B is met, if C is met, if D or X or anything is met, like more than one conditions, then you have to use the COUNTIFs. So quickly, we still have like 3 questions that I've lined up here that we're simply going to answer, and I believe you'll be able to relate and be able to work with it so well. Quickly, we shall jump into the first question. Here, they're asking us to find the total number of transactions through MTN. In other words, transactions that went through MTN on 13th. So in other words, we have 2 conditions here. The transactions that went through MTN and those transactions that actually happened on 13th. So the transaction must have gone through MTN and it must have happened on 13th for it to be counted. Those are the 2 conditions. And that's why we opt to use the COUNTIFs. So how does it work? Like I mentioned previously, for any function, always start with an equal sign. You quickly type it, COUNTIFs, COUNTIFs, it will come up, open brackets for it to come up, open brackets. If you don't, open brackets, it will come up. Now here, the implementation is slightly a bit different from COUNTIFs. So here we are going to add them in pairs. For every condition you want to include, you're going to add it in pairs. So you put the range, first you put the criteria range and then the criterion. The criteria range is the range or a set of cells that include or have or relate to the condition you want to check for. Quickly, let us look at it so you can easily relate. So COUNTIFs. So now our condition, we're going to check one by one. Our condition, the first one is MTN. So where is MTN? MTN is within column E, which is the network. So count if the network, so I'll highlight column E, which is the network. If the network is, count if the network is MTN. And like I mentioned, since it is string, I'll add it in double quotes and type MTN. That is condition 1, so that is the criterion. Next, since I have another condition which the date should be 13th, so I'll get the range. In which range is 13th? It is within the days, on which the transaction happened, which is column C. So I'll highlight column C, which is my criteria range, and I'll put a comma. I'll be requested for the criterion. Criterion is the actual condition. It should be 13th, and I'll close. When I close, it will simply give me the result. So what does this result actually show? It shows all transactions that went through MTN network and happened on 13th. In other words, that transaction to be counted, it must have gone through MTN and it must have happened on 13th. This is what has been given as the answer, and it is actually correct if you want to manually count. I hope that is clear, but to still help you understand it better, we shall quickly jump into question 2. So question 2 is asking find the total number of transactions that went through or happened through Airtel as a network, and they actually happened on 13th. Because there are so many other transactions that actually happened through Airtel but on a different date. I'll practically just go through, scroll down, and you see. So we have like such transactions. This transaction itself, this is the amount. This transaction was through Airtel but on a different day, you know. So but now the question is asking us to count how many transactions actually went through Airtel and happened on 13th. So how do you do that? Equal sign, like I mentioned, for any function, it starts with an equal sign. COUNTIFS. Why COUNTIFS? Because we have more than one condition that we want to consider before we do the actual count. Number one, here, if you want to get support, I've mentioned this a number of times. If you need support, you can close it here. There's always a little baby question mark here to help you get more clarity about an example on how any given formula works. So here we have COUNTIF. So now we want to start checking for each of the conditions. Our first condition, the transaction must have gone through Airtel. Airtel is within the column E, which is the network. So I'll highlight that. That is the criteria range, as you can see. Now, what is the criterion, which is the basically the condition. So the condition would be Airtel, since I'm tackling them one at a time. So check the range that has this and then provide. But now our second condition, like I mentioned, we'll add them in pairs. Our second condition is around the date. The date should be 13th. So what is our range? It will be this. And then in this range, we check for 13th. And I will close. So what does this represent? Just putting it back for you to clearly see it here. It is simply counting. So count all transactions on this on this sheet or in this data set, as long as the network is Airtel, and as long as the column C, which is the day, is 13th. So that is why it is able to count. Like I mentioned, there are so many transactions that happened on 13th but not through Airtel. But here, the condition is requiring counting only those that went through Airtel and on 13th. I hope that is clear. I'll quickly jump into this other one so we can understand it as well. So we have a holistic understanding of how the COUNTIFs work. So here, the third one and last is find the total number of transactions that happened on 14th. That is condition 1, with an amount greater than 100 UGX, 100,000 UGX. So how does that work? This is quite slightly a bit different, and we are going to see the implementation from the first two questions that we were able to get responses to. So, but similar, same implementation a bit. So it is COUNTIFs, COUNTIFs open. So first condition, like I said, put the range and then the condition. So the range where the condition is, and since we have two conditions, we are going to start with the first one, 14th. So 14th, in which range is the 14th? The range in which we can find the 14th for us to apply this condition is the day. So I'll highlight column C, which is the day. So that day should be 14th. So I'll put my 14th here. Then the next condition, they're asking us the amount should be greater than 100,000 UGX. So where do I find this condition? Where do I find the range that is relates to this condition of the amount? So of course it would be, the range would be the amount column, which is column G. So I'll get that column, that would be my range. And then I'll put a comma. For me, you can quickly get a question mark for you to get understanding on how this works if you want clarity. But now my range, my other range for this other condition, remember the first condition was handled well, but now the other condition is about the amount. but in which range is the amount? I'll highlight the amount column G, and then what is now the condition? The condition is always put in double quote if it is a formula. So it needs to be greater than 100,000 UGX. Greater, like I mentioned previously, greater than 100,000 shillings. So I'll close that, and boom. So what does this mean? So it means that actually on, how many transactions happened on 14th, and those transactions were actually greater than 100, UGX, 100,000 UGX. So there are 155 transactions. So those transactions happened on 14th, and they're actually, you understand, to run a bit away from that, these conditions may even change depending on what you're trying to achieve. It can even be which transactions may be greater or equal to, so you know how to, greater or equal to, it will simply be that, and then put that, you understand, or which transactions that are less than 100k, you put less, less symbol, and it will give you that, you understand. So they are less and they are within. And now going back to answer the actual question, that transactions that are actually greater than 100,000 UGX, it will get back to 155 transactions. Thank you very much for watching. For those, a reminder for those that have not watched the previous videos, kindly check them out so you can move along. Thank you very much. Subscribe, like, share, and leave a comment. I sign out.